I'm Olivia Reed, 29 years old, working as a marketer in New York. Ethan left me to marry Charlotte, his wealthy cousin seeing Olivia as just a financial burden. A month later, I unexpectedly received a $52 million will from my grandfather, whom the whole family had underestimated. From the abandoned girl I became. The new billionaire entered the power game, hired lawyers, used money and the law to overturn the unfair divorce, exposed the Miller family and the deceitful marriage. If you love real-life stories, chilling revenge, and dark family secrets, hit that subscribe button now. You're about to step into a world where the truth is far more terrifying than fiction. I never imagined my marriage would end in a courtroom on a Thursday morning smelling of cheap coffee and old carpet. Yet there I was, sitting across from my husband, soon to be ex-husband, Ethan Miller, while the judge read through the documents like he'd done it 1,000 times. Maybe he had. Maybe I was just another case on a long list of broken promises. "I think we're done here," Ethan said without looking at me. His voice was clipped, almost bored, as if he were ending a business contract instead of 8 years of life together. I stared at him, taking in the sharp jawline I used to admire, the tailored navy suit he wore, as if he were auditioning for a magazine cover, and the faint smirk that tugged at the corner of his mouth. He avoided my eyes. Coward? Or maybe he knew that if he met my gaze, I would see the truth he'd been hiding. The truth about her. The truth about why he wanted this divorce. The truth that made my chest feel like it was collapsing inward. The judge stamped a paper, slid it across the desk, and said, "Mrs. Reed, please sign at the bottom." Mrs. Reed, it echoed in my skull. This could be the last time someone called me that. My hand trembled slightly as I picked up the pen. 8 years of loving, sacrificing, believing in a man who promised me forever in a tiny church in upstate New York. 8 years of holding him through panic attacks, celebrating his promotions, sharing meals on the kitchen floor when life felt too heavy. And now this, a signature A. Goodbye, a betrayal I never saw coming. The pen touched the paper. A small dot of ink bled into the crisp white sheet. I signed. Ethan didn't even bother pretending to be emotional. He signed faster than he texted his colleagues. To him, this was efficiency. Freedom, advancement. The judge concluded the session in a monotone voice, "Divorce finalized." Just like that, my marriage ended the way a door clicks shut, quiet, final, and somehow louder than a scream. Outside the courthouse, Manhattan traffic roared like it was trying to swallow me whole. The sky was gray, heavy with storm clouds that felt too appropriate for the occasion. "Olivia," Ethan said, stepping beside me. I froze. "What?" He glanced around as though worried someone might overhear. "I wanted to do this the clean way. You're making it harder than it needs to be." I let out a laugh that sounded nothing like me. "I'm sorry. Did me signing the divorce papers too sadly inconvenience you?" He frowned. "See, this is exactly—" "Just say it," I interrupted. "Say you want to be with her." His eyes flickered. There it was, the truth. "Charlotte and I—" "Don't," I snapped. "Don't say her name like we're discussing the weather. She's your cousin." "Second cousin," he corrected immediately. "Oh yes," I said, folding my arms. "That makes it so much better." He ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand. Charlotte has connections. Opportunities. She comes from—" "Money," I said. "Is that what you were going to say?" "She comes from money." His silence was the answer. I felt something crack inside me. Not a break. No breaks were loud. This was quiet. A hairline fracture in a heart that had already been bruised. Ethan cleared his throat. "Look, Liv, you and we've been growing apart." "No," I said. "You've been growing upward and you think I'm growing sideways." He blinked, seemingly offended. "I never said that. You didn't have to—" A raindrop landed on my cheek. Then another. Soon the sky opened up and rain poured down in sheets. Typical New York dramatics. People ran for cover, umbrellas snapped open, taxis honked. But Ethan and I stood there, letting the storm soak into our clothes. "I hope we can still be civil," he said, stepping back. Civil. As if he'd stolen my life and expected a polite handshake. But I didn't say anything. I didn't have the energy. He nodded, once turned, and walked away, toward a black luxury SUV I recognized as the kind Charlotte preferred. Of course, she was here somewhere. He got in and didn't look back. Lightning cracked across the sky. Thunder rolled, and I stood alone on the courthouse steps, drenched my world unraveling faster than I could hold it together. By the time I got home, my home or what was left of it, the rain had soaked through my coat. The small Manhattan apartment felt foreign without Ethan's things. He'd moved them out last week under the pretense of keeping things organized. I'd been too blindsided to see he'd been preparing for a future without me. I sank onto the couch, staring at the wall. Everything felt empty. Too quiet. Too clean. I hated it. After an hour, or maybe 3, I wasn't sure. My phone buzzed. A text. From Ethan. We both know this is for the best. I'm sorry if you feel hurt. Please don't make this harder. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I typed back. Go to hell. I deleted it. Then typed. Don't contact me again. Sent. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to breathe. I needed a shower. A hot one. Something to wash away the courthouse, the rain, the betrayal clinging to my skin. I walked toward the bathroom. As I passed the mirror in the hallway, I caught a glimpse of myself, 30 years old. Wet hair sticking to my face, mascara smudged eyes red from crying. But beneath the mess, something else stared back at me. A spark, a tiny furious spark, the kind that ignites empires or burns bridges beyond repair. The next morning I went to work as if nothing had happened. The office looked exactly the same as always. Busy, loud fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I worked in marketing, a job I once enjoyed, but now felt numb to. Hey, Olivia, my coworker Sandra said, eyeing me. Rough night, you could say that, I replied. She nodded sympathetically. Word had already spread. New York was big, but gossip traveled fast. During lunch, I sat alone in the break room, stirring my salad without eating it. My phone buzzed again. A notification. An Instagram tag. My stomach dropped. It was a photo, Charlotte's photo. She was seated in a high-end restaurant uptown, smiling in a champagne-colored dress, holding Ethan's arm. The caption read, "When life brings the right people together, magic happens." And as if that weren't enough, Ethan commented with a heart. My lungs tightened. My vision blurred. I dropped my fork. Sandra looked over. Liv, you okay? I forced a breath. Yeah, I'm fine. But I wasn't. I was collapsing quietly like a building with internal rot. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. Locked a stall. Pressed a hand against my mouth to stop the sob that tore through me. 8 years. 8 years erased in a single Instagram post. When I finally emerged, eyes swollen, I told my boss I wasn't feeling well and left early. Outside, the city felt louder than usual. Every honk, every shout, every flashing billboard seemed to echo the same cruel message. You weren't enough. That night, I sat on the fire escape of my apartment with a blanket wrapped around me, listening to the hum of the city lights flickered from windows across the street. Somewhere below, a couple argued. Somewhere above, someone laughed. Life kept going. Mine felt paused, frozen. A notification buzzed on my phone. An email from a law office I'd never heard of. Subject regarding the estate of George Reed. My breath stilled. George Reed. My grandfather? I hadn't seen him in over a year. He'd been a quiet, distant man, kind, but private. He'd lived upstate most of his life, then moved to a retirement community. I never imagined he'd left anything behind. He'd always lived simply. I opened the email. Miss Reed, we request your presence at the reading of the last will and testament of Mr. George Henry Reed. A date, a time, a location. Tomorrow. I blinked. I read it again. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, my heart didn't feel like a dead weight. Something was happening. Something big. I didn't know yet that this email would change everything. That it would flip my life upside down. That it would make Ethan regret every word he said to me. But for now, I just sat there on the fire escape, clutching my phone, staring out at Manhattan, with a strange, unfamiliar feeling in my chest. Hope. Faint, fragile, foolish, but still alive. And I whispered into the cold night, Grandpa, what did you do? The law office sat on the corner of a quiet street in Midtown, tucked between a boutique clothing store and a wine bar. It didn't look like the kind of place where lives were rewritten. It looked like somewhere you'd go to get a mundane contract notarized or argue about zoning permits. Yet I stood there, hands clenched tightly around the straps of my purse, staring up at the brass letters on the door. Harrington and Co., Estate Law. My pulse thudded in my throat. The night before, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the email. My grandfather George had always been kind to me, but distant. A man of few words, thick sweaters, and the faint smell of sawdust. He'd worked construction most of his life, saved what little he could. I never once imagined he'd leave behind an estate requiring a law office in Midtown to handle it. I wasn't even sure why he'd included me at all. I took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. Warm lighting, polished wood, and the faint whisper of classical music greeted me. A receptionist with silver hair and kind eyes looked up. "Good morning, name please." "Olivia Reed." I said, my voice slightly unsteady. She typed something, then smiled. "Yes, Ms. Reed, you're expected. The others are already inside." "The others?" "Right. My aunt's uncle's cousins. Everyone who barely remembered I existed." My stomach tightened. The receptionist gestured toward a door. "Second room on the left." I walked down the hall, heels clicking lightly on the hardwood floor, the sound somehow too loud. As I approached the conference room, I heard voices, sharp, impatient buzzing like flies. He didn't have much anyway. I bet it's mostly sentimental junk. Probably just money for funeral expenses. I pushed open the door. 8 heads turned, then fell silent. My Aunt Meredith, a woman who'd mastered the art of disapproving facial expressions, lifted a brow. "Olivia, didn't think you'd bother coming." I swallowed. "I'm here." My cousin Brandon, who had once shoved me into a lake when we were kids, smirked. "Guess she wants her piece too." Piece of what Grandpa had lived in a tiny apartment. The most valuable thing he owned was probably his old pickup truck. I ignored them and took the empty seat near the end of the table. The room felt cramped, heavy-like. The air itself disapproved of me. A few minutes later, the door opened again, and a man in a dark gray suit entered, mid-50s, tall, composed. "Na, sanasis." "Good morning," he said. "I'm attorney Samuel Harrington. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Today we'll be reading the last will and testament of Mr. George Henry Reed." Everyone nodded solemnly. Some even tried to look tearful. Samuel opened a leather folder and adjusted his glasses. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to remind everyone that Mr. Reed's decisions in his will are legally binding. They may not align with expectations, but they reflect his wishes." There was a subtle tension in the room, a quiet collective inhale. Then he began reading. It started predictably enough. Small items, personal belongings, old tools from his workshop going to my Uncle Rick, his stash of antique coins to Aunt Meredith, a few sentimental items to cousins. Everyone nodded along, looking bored, except when they didn't like what they got. But then Samuel turned a page and cleared his throat. "And now," he said, regarding Mr. Reed's finances and properties. Aunt Meredith shifted forward eagerly. Uncle Rick leaned in. Brandon smirked. Samuel continued. "As of the date of his passing, Mr. George Reed's estate is valued at—" He paused. The room held its breath. $52,365,000. Silence. Then, what someone gasped. "You must be joking. 52 million?" My heart stopped. 55 million. I blinked, waiting for him to correct himself, to say 52,000 or 5 million. But he didn't. He simply looked around the room with professional calm. Aunt Meredith was the first to speak. How is that possible? George lived in a shoebox apartment." Samuel nodded. "Mr. Reed was remarkably private. Over several decades, he invested in construction companies, real estate development, and later in tech startups. His portfolio performed far beyond average. His net worth grew significantly in the last 20 years. My jaw hung slightly open. Grandpa, my quiet sweater-wearing, tool-fixing grandpa, had been a secret multimillionaire. The room rippled with shock and greed. "So," Brandon said, rubbing his hands together, "how is it divided?" Samuel nodded calmly. "All assets, trusts, portfolios, and properties are left to Ms. Olivia Reed." For a moment I thought I hallucinated the words. I blinked. The room went still, then exploded. "What? Impossible. That's ridiculous. Why her?" I shrank back instinctively as 8 pairs of furious eyes drilled into me. My aunt slammed her palm on the table. "Absolutely not. She barely visited him. He must have been confused, Uncle Rick snapped. He was old. He was perfectly sane, Samuel said firmly. The will was updated 8 months ago and notarized. We also have video confirmation of his intent. I felt dizzy. My pulse hammered in my ears. My breath came shallow. Why? I whispered, not even realizing I'd spoken aloud. Why me? Samuel's expression softened. There is a letter addressed to you. Would you like to read it now or privately? Privately, I managed. He nodded, slid a sealed envelope toward me, and then, as if this wasn't already too surreal, added, "There is one stipulation. Ms. Reed must not legally disown any member of the Reed family. Otherwise, the inheritance becomes frozen until reconsideration by the trustee." Aunt Meredith scoffed. Of course he'd do that, trying to force us together. Regardless, Samuel said Ms. Reed has full control of all funds and properties. The yelling resumed. Accusations, demands, insults, everything blurred around me. I grabbed the envelope, stood up shakily, and muttered, "Excuse me," before walking out. No one tried to stop me. They were too busy drowning in their own outrage. I found the restroom down the hall, locked the door, and leaned against it, breathing hard. $52 million. Me. Why? With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick stationery. Grandpa's handwriting was neat, firm, and surprisingly elegant. My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, it means my time has passed. I know we weren't close in the traditional sense, but I watched you grow into someone honest and kind in a world that often rewards neither. Your parents have their own wealth. Your aunts and uncles have always chased after what glitters. But you, Olivia, you lived with heart. You loved without calculating. You helped others quietly. You worked hard even when life was unfair to you. That is why I chose you, because you will not squander what I built, nor let it turn you cruel. Do not let this money change who you are. Let it free you, not trap you. And use it to build a life that honors the best parts of yourself. You owe your family nothing except basic respect. Spend the rest however you see fit. Live boldly, love wisely, protect your spirit. With all my love, Grandpa George. My throat tightened. Tears slipped down my cheeks. Quiet, aching tears. He'd seen me. He'd understood me in a way no one else had, not even Ethan. And he believed in me. For a long moment, I just stood there, clutching the letter to my chest. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or collapse. A multimillionaire. Me, a woman who had only 2 days ago felt like her life was worthless. The universe had a strange, poetic sense of timing. Almost cruel, almost divine. When I finally left the restroom, my legs felt shaky but grounded. I walked back into the conference room just long enough to hear more bickering. She probably manipulated him. He was senile. We should contest the will. I cleared my throat loudly. The room fell silent. 8 hostile faces turned toward me. Years ago, their judgment would have broken me. But now I had something else holding me up. I lifted my chin. My grandfather's wishes are final, I said. If any of you contest this will, I'll hire an army of lawyers to make sure it never sees trial. They gaped at me. I continued, voice steady, calm, and unfamiliar even to myself. And I will win. Silence. Nobody argued. Nobody dared, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one in the corner. For the first time, I had power and they knew it. I turned toward the door. As I stepped out of the law office, sunlight hit my face. The city noise swirled around me, and I thought, maybe my life isn't ending. Maybe it's finally beginning. I didn't feel rich the moment I became rich. Instead, I felt suspended, like I was floating above my own life while everyone else scrambled to make sense of it. The morning after the will reading, I woke up in my tiny apartment with peeling paint, the radiator clicking sporadically like it always did, the city horns blaring below my window. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. 9 digits sat in my bank account. 9 digits. It didn't feel real. I made coffee as usual, store-brand grounds, chipped mug, then spent 2 hours staring at the letter from Grandpa George. Reading it, rereading it, memorizing its quiet wisdom. He believed in me. He trusted me more than anyone ever had. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a warmth in my chest that almost replaced the cold left behind by Ethan's betrayal. Almost. By noon, I forced myself to get dressed. Jeans, a cream sweater, nothing fancy, and headed to my first official meeting with the financial advisor Samuel recommended. The office was in a sleek high-rise on 57th Street, the kind of building where the elevators whispered and the floors gleamed so cleanly you could see your reflection in them. I felt strangely out of place. Everyone here carried themselves with confidence and pride. I carried my tote bag with a broken zipper. The elevator opened on the 39th floor. A sharply dressed woman greeted me at the reception desk. "Ms. Reed, Mr. Whitmore will see you now." I nodded and followed her inside. The office looked like something out of a movie, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. A marble desk and a man in his early 40s with a smile like he was used to dealing with nervous millionaires. "Olivia," he said warmly, standing to shake my hand. "I'm Andrew Whitmore, please sit." I did, crossing my legs to hide the fact that I felt utterly out of my league. He opened a folder. "First, congratulations on your inheritance." "I still can't believe it," I admitted. His smile softened. "Most people don't at first." We reviewed numbers. So many numbers. Portfolios, trusts, properties. I learned words I'd only seen on financial blogs. I never understood diversified assets, liquid holdings, tax shelters, corporate bonds. At one point, Andrew said, "You have more money than 99% of people on the planet." I almost choked on my water. But with every chart he showed me, every breakdown, every calm explanation, something inside me shifted. This money wasn't just luck. It was responsibility. It was power. Power. Ethan once tried to take from me. Power he believed I'd never have. Well, surprise. After 2 hours, Andrew closed the folder. "There's no rush to make big decisions. Let the emotions settle first. Wealth changes everything. But it shouldn't change you too quickly." I nodded, grateful. "Thank you," I said, standing. He walked me to the door. "One more thing." "Yes." He hesitated, then said carefully, "People from your past may reach out soon. Friends, family, ex-partners." I felt a chill run down my spine. "They'll want something from you," he continued. "Everyone always wants something from the wealthy." I swallowed. I already knew who would reach out first. That night I sat on the couch, scrolling through the numbers Andrew had emailed me, trying to absorb the sheer magnitude of everything. But no matter how many times I looked at the figures, my brain kept drifting back to Ethan. I hadn't told him. I hadn't told anyone except the attorney and the advisor, and yet the knowledge sat inside me like a lit fuse. The question wasn't if he would find out. The question was how and when. I didn't have to wait long. At 9:14 p.m. my phone lit up with a text from Ethan. Of course. My stomach tightened as I opened it. "We need to talk." Short, direct, exactly like him. I stared at it, deleted the notification. A minute later, another text appeared. "It's important, call me." I tossed my phone onto the couch like it had burned me. I wasn't ready, not yet. I needed clarity, strategy, control. Three things I had never possessed in that marriage. I went to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, but before I could drink it, my phone began to ring. Ethan again. I wasn't answering. I let it ring until it stopped. A second later, another text. "I saw something today about your grandfather. Call me back." My heartbeat slowed. He knew. Of course he did. News traveled fast, especially when someone suddenly inherited $52 million. He probably saw it online or heard it from one of his well-connected coworkers or his dear Charlotte. It didn't matter. What mattered was that now he cared. Not about me, about the money. My spine straightened. For the first time, I felt an unexpected thrill. Not joy, not satisfaction. Something colder, sharper. A beginning? The spark from before suddenly glowed brighter. The next day, I took a personal day from work. I needed to think, to breathe, to figure out the next steps of my life. Not my revenge. Not yet. Morning sunlight spilled into my small apartment, catching the dust particles, drifting lazily in the air. The place looked even smaller now that I knew I could afford something 10 times bigger. But I wasn't ready to move. This apartment had witnessed my heartbreak. Maybe it needed to witness my rise too. By afternoon, I had already made a list of immediate tasks. Hire a lawyer specifically for asset protection, update all passwords, freeze my credit temporarily, secure non-disclosure agreements for advisors, plan a long-term financial strategy. I wasn't dumb. New money without boundaries was a disaster waiting to happen. At 3 p.m., I was reviewing properties Grandpa owned when a loud knock rattled my door. I froze. Another knock. Firm, impatient. I stood, heart racing, and walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and there he was. Ethan. My breath hitched. He looked polished as always, perfect hair, fitted beige coat shoes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But there was something different in his eyes. Nervousness. Desperation. I opened the door a crack. "What do you want?" He exhaled in relief. "Liv, finally, I've been calling you." "I know! Can we talk, please?" I stepped out into the hallway and closed the door behind me, blocking his view of my home. "No," I said. "Whatever you want to say it here." He hesitated. "Then, I heard about your grandfather." I figured, I said coolly. "I'm sorry, I know you two were close." "We weren't," I corrected, "but thank you." He nodded awkwardly. "And, I also heard he left you something." "A few things," I said. His throat bobbed. "A few million things." I didn't answer. He searched my face, frustration rising. "Liv, come on, just tell me. It's true, isn't it? Why does it matter to you?" He blinked. "What do you mean? I'm just trying to understand. Why now?" I cut in. "Why reach out only when money is involved?" He looked stung. "That's not fair." "It's honest," I said. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Can we please go inside and talk? Charlotte doesn't need to know." I almost laughed. "You want to have a secret conversation with your ex-wife behind your new girlfriend's back?" He winced. "She's not my—" "She's your everything," I said. "Isn't that what you told me?" He fell silent. For a moment, the hallway buzzed with the hum of distant elevators and muffled conversations. Ethan looked around nervously, as if worried someone would see him. Typical. He always cared more about appearances than truth. Then he spoke softly. "I made a mistake." I smirked. "Which one? Leaving me or underestimating me?" His jaw clenched. For the first time, he looked small. He whispered, "I want to fix things." I let out a breathless laugh. "And I want a unicorn." "Liv, please." "No," I said firmly. He stared at me, panic flickering through his eyes, but I didn't care. Because I saw him clearly now, without love, without nostalgia. He was just a man who traded loyalty for wealth. And now the tables had turned. "Leave," I said. "Can we talk later?" "Dinner, coffee. Anything." "Leave, Olivia." I said leave. He finally did. Slowly. Hesitantly. Like a gambler walking away from a table after losing the bet of his life. And when the elevator swallowed him, I went back inside my apartment, locked the door, and pressed my back against it. For the first time since the divorce, I wasn't the broken one. I wasn't the abandoned one. I was the one with power. And power, when used correctly, could become the sharpest form of revenge. I smiled to myself. The first move had been made, not by him, by me. I used to think power came with noise, big moves, bold words, grand gestures. But that was Ethan's way of thinking. Charlotte's too. They lived loudly. They flaunted money. They showcased status. They believed lightning made more impact than rain. What they forgot is that rain can carve mountains. I decided I would be rain, quiet, persistent, relentless. Let them never see the storm coming. It began with information. One thing I learned very quickly as a newly wealthy woman was that money didn't change as much as knowledge did. Money was loud. Knowledge whispered. And whispered information could destroy entire empires. I hired a private investigator, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted the truth. Clarity, understanding, leverage. His name was Marcus Hayes, a man in his late 40s with eyes like a hawk and a voice like gravel. The first time we met, he studied me carefully and said, "Most people who hire me want someone ruined, do you?" I shook my head. "I want to know what I'm dealing with." "Good," he said. "Revenge done blindly always hits the wrong target." He got to work immediately. Within 3 weeks, he uncovered more than I expected and more than I wanted. Ethan had lied during the divorce. He had hidden assets. He had moved money. He had shifted bonuses into separate accounts under his cousin's management, Charlotte's, which meant both of them were guilty of financial misconduct. And if exposed, the consequences would be severe. My fingers trembled when I read the report. I felt a mix of fury, vindication, and an icy calm. I didn't recognize. They hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, they had robbed me legally, but for the first time I didn't feel powerless. I felt strategic. Marcus leaned back in his chair, hands clasped. What do you want me to do now? I took a breath. Nothing yet. He raised a brow. Most people would weaponize this instantly. I'm not most people. A slow smile spread across his face. Fair enough. While Marcus gathered information, I made my second move. I hired a lawyer who specialized in high-asset divorce fraud. Her name was Alicia Bennett, and if confidence were a person, it would be her. Sharp ponytail, sharper voice, and eyes so intelligent it was almost unsettling. She read Marcus's report silently, page by page. Then she looked at me and said, "We can win." I swallowed. Win what exactly? Reopening your divorce case. Suing for hidden assets, for damages, for fraud, for punitive charges. If we want to be aggressive. My heart pounded. Aggressive? The word tasted dangerous. Alicia continued. If everything in this report holds up, Ethan doesn't just lose money. He could lose his job, his reputation, his career. I stared at my hands. I don't want to destroy his life. Her voice softened, but only slightly. My job isn't to destroy lives. It's to correct injustice. What he and Charlotte did was illegal. I took a long breath. Start the process. Discreetly, she asked. Yes, I said, I don't want them to know. Not yet. Not until the timing was perfect. My third move was the one that changed everything. I decided to invest, not for greed, not even for profit. I invested in myself. I took courses in financial literacy, business management negotiation, and corporate law for non-lawyers. I learned everything about wealth that wealthy people were never taught to share. And the more I learned, the more a plan formed. A bigger plan, a smarter one, an unexpected one. I wasn't just going to take back what Ethan stole. I was going to build something powerful, something lasting, something that my grandfather would be proud of. Then came the day everything shifted. It happened on a Thursday. Funny how Thursdays became the turning points in my life. I was having lunch alone at a small cafe in Midtown when I saw something on my phone. Breaking news: Miller Group under financial review. My heart skipped. Miller Group, Charlotte's family company. The headline continued, potential irregularities found in recent tax filings, investigation pending. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't me. Not Alicia, not Marcus, not even Karma. This was something or someone else. As if summoned by my own thoughts, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. You'll want to see this. He sent a link to an article reporting that a whistleblower had submitted anonymous documents exposing inconsistencies in the Miller Group's accounting. Not documents from Marcus, not documents from me. Something entirely different. I texted Marcus. Who sent it? His reply was instant. Not us, but someone's playing their own game. I stared at the article, heart racing. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message? From an unknown number. Just one line. They made enemies long before you. I froze. A cold ripple spread down my spine. Whoever this was, they knew about me. About Ethan. About the Miller family. But why message me? Before I could overthink it, my phone rang. Ethan. Of course. A part of me wanted to ignore him. Another part wanted to hear the panic in his voice. I answered. Hello. His voice came through ragged and frantic. Olivia, please say you had nothing to do with this. With what? The investigation. The review. The whole damn thing is falling apart. Charlotte is losing it. Her father is furious. Everyone is asking questions. So I said coolly. So he snapped, they think I leaked something. I blinked. Did you? Of course not. You sure? Because you've lied about plenty of other things. He flinched. I could hear it in the pause. I'm being serious, he said. This is huge, Liv. It could ruin us. Us, I repeated with a laugh. There is no us. Haven't you forgotten? He grew quiet. Then desperate. Can we meet? Please just talk. I need. No, I said calmly. I don't meet in secret with men who betray me. Olivia. I hung up. For a moment, I stared at my phone, listening to the thump of my heart. This wasn't my doing, but it was an opportunity, a big one. Alicia had already begun assembling evidence to reopen the divorce case. Marcus was still digging, and now the Miller Group was under federal review. The walls around Ethan and Charlotte weren't just cracking, they were collapsing, all without me lifting a finger. Not yet, anyway. 2 days later, Alicia called. We have enough, she said bluntly. For what? To file the motion. The courts will reopen your divorce. And based on what we've gathered, the outcome will be vastly different. I closed my eyes, steadying my breath. This was it. The moment where everything turned. When do we file? I asked. Tomorrow morning. Do it. There was a pause. Olivia, she said softly. Once this begins, there's no going back. I thought of Ethan's betrayal, of Charlotte's smug smile, of the Instagram post, of the courthouse rain, of the broken woman I was. Then I thought of Grandpa's letter, of the $52 million, of the spark inside me that had grown into something fierce. I don't want to go back, I said. I'm done living in the past. She inhaled deeply. Then let's move forward. That evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. Not Ethan, not a neighbor. It was a courier. He handed me an envelope with no return address. I opened it slowly, cautiously. Inside was a single photograph. A photograph of Ethan and Charlotte at a restaurant meeting with a man I didn't recognize. The man was handing them paperwork. And written on the back in sharp black ink, "This is where your story begins. Don't stop now." I stared at the picture as a chill washed over me. Someone was helping me. Someone who knew more than they should. Someone who wanted Ethan and Charlotte to fall. But who and why? I didn't know. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. Because I wasn't the same Olivia anymore. I wasn't the woman Ethan left. I wasn't the woman who cried in the courthouse. I wasn't the woman who let everyone else choose her destiny. I was the woman holding the first card in a game they didn't even know they were playing. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I would show them that the quiet ones are the most dangerous. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There are countless real-life betrayals, twists, and revenge stories waiting for you in the next episodes. The morning my lawyer filed the motion to reopen the divorce case, Manhattan was strangely quiet. Snow had fallen overnight, light enough that the streets weren't buried, heavy enough that everything looked washed clean. A fresh start, wrapped in white. I woke earlier than usual, brewed coffee, and watched the city stretch awake from my little apartment window. I expected to feel nervous, terrified, guilty even. Instead, I felt steady, grounded. Like I had finally stepped into the version of myself I was always meant to become. My phone buzzed at 8:02 a.m. It was Alicia. "It's done," she said. "The court has officially accepted the filing. Ethan will be served within the next 48 hours. I exhaled slowly. "Thank you." "One more thing," she added. "Once the documents reach him, he'll know exactly what we have." I nodded. Let him know. I didn't have to wait long. That afternoon, just as I was preparing lunch, there was a violent knock on my door. 3 sharp bangs that rattled the hinges. Of course, Ethan didn't wait for an invitation. I opened the door just enough to see his face. Red, stressed, almost frantic. "You did this," he hissed. "You're destroying my life." I stepped back slightly but kept my voice calm. "Hello, Ethan. You reopened the divorce case. You're suing me for fraud, for hidden assets. Do you even know what this means?" "Yes," I said. "It means you lied to the court." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I did what I had to do," he said defensively. "You don't understand how much pressure I was under." "Pressure to cheat on me?" I asked. "Pressure to steal from me? Pressure to hide assets so you could keep more money for yourself?" He swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." His breath came faster. "You could ruin everything. My job, my reputation, Charlotte's family." Charlotte's family was already under federal investigation before I did anything, I said, folding my arms. "Don't blame me for the mess you stepped into." His jaw tightened. "You're not innocent, Olivia. Don't pretend to be." "I'm not pretending to be anything," I said evenly. "I just stopped letting you decide who I am." He stared at me, chest rising and falling. For a moment he looked small, not powerful or ambitious or charming, just a man who made his own downfall and didn't know how to accept it. "Please," he said quietly, "can't we just fix this?" I blinked. "Fix what?" "Us." I laughed, not cruelly, not mockingly, just truthfully. "There is no us left to fix Ethan. But we were good together." "No," I said softly. "I was good to you. You were good at pretending." He paled. I took a small step back. "We're done. We've been done. And now the court will handle the rest." I didn't slam the door. I just closed it gently, and the soft click of the latch felt like a final heartbeat. Over the next 2 weeks, everything accelerated. The Miller Group's investigation deepened. Articles spread like wildfire. Rumors, accusations, financial inconsistencies, name it, and it was probably on the news. Charlotte's poised, social media perfect world cracked like glass under heat. A reporter even camped outside my building one morning, shouting questions like, "Miss Reed, is it true you're behind the investigation? Are you seeking revenge on your ex-husband? Are you going to testify against the Miller family?" I said nothing. Silence was the most elegant answer. Meanwhile, Alicia tore through Ethan's financial history with a precision that almost frightened me. Every lie, every transfer, every hidden bonus he'd tried to disguise, it all came out, but here's the thing. No one tells you. Revenge looks satisfying from a distance. Up close, it's exhausting! Late at night, I'd sit by my window looking down at the glowing city and wonder whether any of this was making me happier. Wealth did not erase pain. Justice did not erase betrayal. And revenge, it didn't erase loneliness. But it brought me clarity. It brought me closure. And it brought me something more powerful than all three: freedom. The court hearing was set for a Monday. Rain drizzled down the windows of the courthouse, almost identical to the day of our divorce. Except this time I wasn't broken. I walked in wearing a tailored black coat, and confidence I earned step by step, choice by choice. Ethan was already there, sitting beside his lawyer, looking thinner, worn down. Charlotte wasn't with him. Rumors said she'd fled to California until the scandal died down. Good. I took my seat beside Alicia. The hearing wasn't long. The evidence was overwhelming. Ethan's fraud was undeniable. The judge's voice was steady as he delivered the ruling. Due to evidence of concealed assets, we are reopening the divorce settlement. The court orders a full financial audit of Mr. Ethan Miller. Additionally, damages will be established pending further review. I didn't look at Ethan. I didn't need to, because this wasn't about destroying him anymore. This was about reclaiming myself. 3 weeks later, Alicia called with the final settlement numbers. I sat on my couch, legs tucked under me, sipping tea as she read the details aloud. I would receive Ethan's hidden bonuses, a portion of the assets he illegally concealed, damages, penalties for fraud, full reimbursement of legal fees. The amount wasn't anywhere near the $52 million I already had, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the truth. It was about dignity. It was about finally hearing the universe say, "You were right. He was wrong, and you deserved better." And then, almost anticlimactically, Ethan disappeared from my life. No more calls, no more texts, no more desperate attempts. He moved out of the city. His career stalled. His shiny future with Charlotte faded into a distant, embarrassing memory. And I didn't miss him. Not even a little. 3 months later, I stood in front of a building that had once been a rundown community center in Queens. Now renovated and glowing with new life, it bore a logo on the glass doors. The George Reed Foundation, empowering women to rise. I stepped inside. Warm colors, comfortable chairs, counseling rooms, legal support offices, financial education classrooms. A space for women who'd been abandoned, betrayed, manipulated, just like I once was. A space my grandfather would have been proud of. A space I was proud of. A young woman greeted me. "Hi, Ms. Reed. The new group session starts in 15 minutes. "Thank you," I said, smiling. I walked to my office, my new office, and stood by the window looking out at the city. My story didn't end with Ethan. It didn't end in a courtroom. It didn't end with $52 million. It began the moment I decided not to be the woman who was left behind, but the woman who walked forward, strongly, quietly, and beautifully. For the first time in my life, I whispered to myself, "I'm finally home." And I meant it.